Bienvenidos a Diálogos Sensoriales. En esta ocasión seguimos en la modalidad en línea y vamos a viajar virtualmente a la Villa Italia. Vamos a tener aquí una gran invitada, una invitada de lujo que, bueno, va a estar con nosotros, ya la van a conocer. Ella es la doctora Sara Spinelli. Sara, bienvenida. Welcome to Diálogos Sensoriales. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for this invitation.
Okay. So let's start with the basic question. Why and how, or what was your motivation to specialize you in sensory evaluation, and how your perspective of it has evolved since the beginning of your career?
Yes, it's so I come from a different field, semiotics, and first I was interested in language and the relationship between language and perception.
Okay.
So then I discovered that sensory science existed, and so I focused more and more on perception, and I still work on language sometimes, or how people describe their food experience or product experience, but I'm now sensory science was really when I discovered I realized how you can interpret and understand the perception of food that is multisensory, all the multisensory aspect, and so this is my motivation to moving towards this field.
Right. And who, if there are any, who were your mentors, or when was that time you realized that you enjoy doing sensory science? If there is any.
It was during my PhD, and my mentor are here in Florence, because I was doing my PhD in Bologna, not in Florence, still in Italy, but in another place. Then I met Erminio Monteleone, and it was when I discovered that sensory science existed, and so then I learned everything by him, and being in this group with the other colleagues.
Right. How was that change? I mean, coming from the, it's not entirely different field, but how was that change of doing language and now working with people who describe stuff, who is I don't know, a nice descriptor or a nice judge to describe foods or cosmetics? Was it difficult?
Yeah, no, the change is big between this perspective, because well, there is a question in language linguistic studies that is related to the relationship between sensory perception and language. So what comes first, if language shape your perception or the other way around? And probably there is a mix of both. It's an ancient debate, and very big debate. And with sensory science, I think that what I like more is that you can investigate, you can understand better how people perceive foods, but also other products. So the impact of different characteristics that are, for example, individual differences in sensitivity, in how they, their personality trait, or aspects related to also sociocultural aspects. So many different influences that could be very different, and they all play a role. And so to evaluate how much this impact the perception, and of course the words that we have to describe the things are important, but it's not only this. So it's there are many aspects involved. But of course, language we use it even in the most basic test,
right?
At least to give instruction to the subject. And we know that changing the wording of the way in which we give instruction, we can have effect. So I still have my my interest in the language there.
Right. How important is instructions, right? Because I remember at my first time doing applying a questionnaire for consumers, it was like too complicated, many instructions from my naive point of view. But at the end, it was like, okay, the consumer should understand all the stuff he or she wants to or needs to do. So it's as you mentioned, it's basic or simple, but it must be critical for the sensory research or consumer research. If the wording is wrong, so it can be dangerous. So nice, good. And well, then you switch, or I don't know if you are still doing like working with judges, but you according to your description, you work more with consumers. So how different is that? I mean, working with a trained panel or with consumers, in particular with this let's say non-well explored populations. How is working with that type of consumers?
Yes, I've always worked more with consumers than with trained panels, and with different types of consumer. For example, not only the adults, general population, but also children, adolescents, so more vulnerable population, elderly people, so older adults in elderly care centers, so with cognitive problems. And of course, in these cases, you have also additional issues in the test, because there are cognitive limitation or specificities, so that things should be presented not only, for example, when you select the sensory descriptors, but also the scale that we know that we don't change, that they are there, but we need to explain in a way that they could understand or guide them through the evaluation. And we worked a lot on the development of sensory, so like specific descriptors with the specific population. So, for example, with children or with the group that we are working on, we conduct usually interviews before, one-on-one interviews, in which we, through a methodology that is based on the comparison between products, we identify the words that people use to describe the food, but not only the words, the semantic categories that they use to describe the product. And then we use this information to develop questionnaires that are easier to understand, to be understood by this group of people.
Wow!
So I think it's very effective to do something like this, in the sense to be sure that, for example, with children, you use a language that they can understand and that is shared by them.
Which population do you enjoy more to work with? I mean, with children, elder people, young people? Who is more interesting? If there is any, I mean.
Yeah, no, I think everybody is interesting, because there is a variability in every segment that you can choose that it's interesting. I also like to work and we conduct work on people that other vulnerable population, for example, cancer patients. Right. So in this case, they are receiving chemotherapy, so they are not in the best moment of their life, and but I like to work with this type of patient because I think that, for example, even in this case, you can also get information that you can see that how effective they can be in improving their quality of life. For example, studying sensory alteration, taste alteration, or something like this. Of course, this requires a sensitivity to work with this type of people.
Interesting, because normally we just think about maybe the consumer will like it or not, or this is a nice packaging or whatever, but according to this, you are more interested in how this can affect the ingestion or help that people to enjoy this part of their time, right? It's you think that will be the core of your research in those vulnerable populations, or not?
Yes, my interest is on one side to better understand the mechanism of perception, and in this case of taste alteration, but also to see and to develop products or to give recommendation for food consumption that in a way that can compensate for this alteration. So like contributing to an improvement in quality of life, that could be reducing negative emotions or improving positive emotion if it's possible, of course.
Right, yes.
This is easier with the non-clinical patient individuals, but of course it's more important when you have vulnerable populations.
And we can find those research in, for instance, the food quality and preference, or where can we find that?
Yeah.
If we have people who is working with that or start working with that process, let's say.
Yeah, there is research published on food quality and preference in the past. Just recently, a few months ago, we published the first results of our study, Alter Taste project, in which we are investigating the change in taste perception of patients undergoing chemotherapy, and the impact that this alteration have on the change of preferences, food preferences, and emotions. And what we saw was that actually emotions change before the preferences change, because to change a preference, it takes some time, and sometimes you even don't change preferences. It's the fact. So if you prefer coffee with sugar over coffee without sugar, maybe you still prefer coffee without sugar, but then it can give you less positive emotion after one cycle or two cycles of chemotherapy. So it changes your relationship with the food, impacting food preferences only with more time. So we saw this with for example, after 4 cycles. Wow. So I think that this link between sensory perception, emotions, and also preferences and liking, it's very important, and we need to investigate it more, because we focused a lot on liking or on sensory properties, not on the link of all of these things, and including emotions.
Right. Wow. Very interesting. So I will share some of your studies in the video if you agree. So if you can share me some, I will put it in the description. So it's very interesting how sensory can work into different fields other than preference and description, right? So thanks. And well, okay. You are now chair of the Italian and European Sensory Society. And in your opinion, of course, what do you consider is the biggest challenge and most let's say promising opportunities for the sensory field in Europe or globally, probably? I don't know.
Yeah, I would say the Italian Sensory Science Society grew a lot during the last years, last 15 years, and now we have it's one of the largest society in Europe. And this means that if we have more members, because many people study more sensory science in the university. Also in the industries, there is more this habit that was not in this way in the past, in which sensory science was more limited and focused on train panel, and even in the industries. At the European level, we can see something similar, because the society grew also, and it was funded, the I3S was funded in 2011, and we were 12 different countries, different national societies, and now we have 3 members more, so we are 15, and we are still waiting 2 or 3 that they are setting up their own association. So what I can say is that sensory science is growing in Europe, but I think all over the world, and it's becoming more and more structured. And with structure, I refer mainly to education, in the sense that because if a large role in this development is related to the university, so that you can learn sensory science, doing exams on sensory science. So it's not a part of another course. It's now a course in many universities. So this as a role. And also there is the role that the societies also try to play with the industries, creating this connection between industries and academia. So for applied research, but sensory science is always applied. So it's applied also in academia. It's not that is not applied. It's yes, there could be more interest in understanding mechanism, for example, but then it's always applied in terms of related to its definition. So I think that so it is growing, and one of the challenge will be also to create, for example, a basic level that can be identified as, for example, the contents that we think that should be taught at the university. We are discussing within I3S about it, because as I said, the courses are many and growing in Europe, right. But maybe different in different countries, different universities, you have different topics that are in the lectures. So we are discussing, it's an open discussion, but we are discussing which are the content that are mandatory, so that you need to learn to work in this field.
Right.
So and this will also have an impact on the profession, no? That is in the training, through the training. So this is one of the activities that we are working on within the society.
Nice. So
and a real challenge.
I know. I can guess. So it's how difficult is working with other societies? I mean, I know you are growing, but let's say compared with other continents. So it will be easy. It's not easy. There is not much contact. So how easy is to work in that way?
So you mean not internal between different countries in Europe, but with other society?
Yeah, maybe from Asia, for example.
Yeah, we started with this process a few years ago with setting up this sensory science global group. Mm-hmm. And there are regular meetings that are organized. The difficulties are related mainly to the fact that so while in Europe there is also not only the national societies, but there is E3S, so like transnational societies. Right. Not in every continent is something like this. Actually, there is no comparable society that is transnational, because unless the African societies, but it has a different structure because it's not a society of societies. It's the African society that participate to this meeting. And then there is the Asian Sensory Network that is not exactly a society, but there are representatives of different countries. And from Latin America, we have connection with Sense Latam that is more focused on the conference than not exactly a society, but it's even in this case. And North America, again, does not have a society, but there is the SSP, but it's more like there are members that are not from US, so it's not only focused on this. So we are trying to collaborate with other societies, and also it would be nice if other continent organize societies, because also things are growing. For example, in Latin America, I think many societies now, they are more and more structured, and so it would be nice to have to organize discussion and events together. I think it will be another challenge for the future.
Right, it's a big homework, but yes, I agree. It's growing, and we need to be connected. I mean, that's the best part of sensory. The more connections you have, the more powerful research you can have. And of course, in the case of Latin America, we are trying to do that. So we are working with Red Sense Latam, which is, let's say, the big society. But now, besides the Brazilian association, now we are working with the Mexican association. So hopefully we can work in that way soon. Hopefully, let's cross our fingers.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's move to another part of the interview where I will ask you some preference questions. Ties are not allowed, so try to decide for one of them, if possible. I know for some there are no possibility, but let me first let me know your choice about red wine or white wine.
Red wine.
Tetra testing or triangle test?
Triangle test.
Pasta alla carbonara o lasagna alla bolognese?
This I love both, but I would say lasagna if I have to choose.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Traditional descriptive analysis or rapid methods?
In this case, I would say both also, because it depends on the objective. Because both are very powerful, it depends on the objective and the constraint of the research.
Always it depends, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Rock music or opera?
I like both, but rock music if I have to choose.
Which is your favorite group?
I do not have only one favorite, but rock of the 90s, for example, I like it a lot.
Okay, thanks. 7 or 9 point scale?
9 point scale.
Analytical or consumer testing? That's easy.
More in consumer testing.
Parametric or non-parametric statistics?
Even in this case, they are both very useful, and they have all their limitation and constraint. But both, I cannot choose.
Okay. Preference mapping or PLS?
Even in this case, both are important. Preference mapping is like the basic, so I would say preference mapping.
Okay, thank you for your answers. And let's move to the final part of the interview. And for that, do you or can you share with us like a timeline of how sensory arrived into Italy? If there is like a I don't know if you know who started everything or not, or where can, if we are interested into that, where can we find that information?
Yes, so I think that sensory science so started to be diffused in Italy in the 90s, I think. And there were different groups in Italy, and actually the Italian Sensory Science Society was founded in 2002, so a few years later, with a short number of so a limited number of people that were like the founders of the society, but spread all around the country. And then as I said, then the increase in the next step in the increase was 10 years later, 12 years later, so when it started to be diffused, when also E3S was founded, something like this. So.
And okay, and at the end you. Well, I remember I couldn't attend, but you had the Pangborn at some time, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, because when sensory science arrived in Italy, was mainly applied to products. So it was sensory science of wine, so very focused on product. And the first part of the development was still focused on product and quality of product. Then it went beyond this, and now it's very so there are only limited application to product. Is more broad the sense in which we consider sensory and consumer science, because also consumer was integrated. And yes, in Italy in 2004 there was the first Eurosense organized in Florence, and in 2009 Pangborn was organized in Florence. So these were the years also where there was like a connection also with the international community, and both in Florence they were these conferences. So it's a place where there has been a tradition, also where the Italian Sensory Science Society and the European Sensory Science Society were founded. So there is a connection with this city.
Nice. So, well, you attended to the last Pangborn and compare with your first Pangborn. What's the main difference, if there is any, about the topics or the way of sharing the information? Do you find any difference?
No, yes, I think so. My first Pangborn was this one in Florence, 2009, and it was probably the first Pangborn in which there was a session on emotions. So it was a new topic at that time. I remember this as a very new topic, and what I can see now there are so many things that at that time they were there, but they were like a new topic. Now there is a session still at Pangborn, but it's not new in the sense that there has been a lot of research on this, but also on other type of study. What is changed is, for example, that now there has been in the last years a lot of interest in sustainability or developing new products that are more sustainable. All the alternative proteins was not there in 2009. And so a lot of interest in innovation on specific type of products. And also what I saw in this last penguin that I can say it was new was, for example, there were a bunch of talks related to the GLP-1 drugs, so for people with obesity, so the effect of different drugs to treat obesity or diabetes and the impact on perception. This is new because we didn't have these drugs before. and also probably the connection with health, it's stronger now than it, at least in my perception, than it was in the past. Right. That was more on consumer or product.
Okay. Do you have like aha moment or a really enjoyable moment doing sensory? Something that always put a smile on your face when you think on that, or not yet?
No, many things I would say. It's difficult to choose in the sense. One is for example, you mentioned conferences and thinking about conferences, I cannot avoid to think that the best part of the conferences is to meeting friends. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when I attended my first Penguin, I didn't know anybody there. I was a student helper, actually, also. And so it was the first time that I saw people real, that I only read the names in the article. And then, and now every conference instead is also an opportunity to meet friends, colleagues, and make new friends, because every conference there are many people new, and that we start to build a relationship mainly during conferences.
And now so people try to approach you and speak and know more about your research, right? Now what you are.
Yeah, no, but also me with other, in the sense that it's a good opportunity to connect. I think that missing the conferences to meet in person is something that is we tried this during the COVID, so I can say that was not good.
Okay. In your opinion, what are the essential must-have skills or competencies for people who is doing sensory or is starting to doing sensory science, or to be a sensory scientist today, for example? So
I think they should have an open mind, in the sense that sensory science is multidisciplinary. So you cannot know all the discipline, but of course, but at least you should be open to understand other perspective, other point of view. So not like that you are focused on one only. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so open to learn from scratch something else next year, because there will be the need to focus on this statistical analysis, new or this other aspect. So be open to new things and to learn again, and also the fact of being sensitive, good with people, because otherwise you cannot do tests with people if you don't have their trust. And so I mean with the people that you recruit that participate in the test, and also be good in collaboration. So to collaborate as in a team, not to be like an independent person, because it's difficult to do sensory work alone. You need many people to do this. So also on the side, not only the subject, but also on the side of the researchers. So you need to collaborate with others. I think these three things are the most important. The other things you can learn while you are facing the problem.
Perfect, thanks. Let's say we have a time machine and you can travel to the past or to the future. Which way do you prefer and why?
I would say both also in this case.
Okay.
I would like to go back and then in the future. No, because there are many things that are interesting. So for the future, everything is interesting because we don't know. So it's a world of new things that can happen. So I'm very curious also of advancement in research in other disciplines that can affect the sensory science, for example, that we are not aware at the moment. Yes, and in the past I would have liked to have the opportunity to attend the conference, like one of the first conferences, and so to see many people that are now retired, but in person. So to meet in person, for example, Rosemary Penn, to meet in person would have been nice. Right.
Yeah. Totally agree. And finally, do you have a sensory book, paper? Of course, those are from you, but other published material that you can suggest to the people who is doing or starting sensory? Like this is the must-have publication.
Yeah, so the first one that I was recommended when I first approached the sensory science was Lawless and Heyman, the sensory evaluation book. And I would say that it's still very important to have it because you can find everything or the basis of everything. So even so, I think that this is something like a must-have. If this was the question, yeah. Then there are many interesting books also, but I mean, as a must-have, I think this was important.
Thank you. And this is how we arrived to the end of the interview. Sara, it has been a true honor to have you on Diálogos Sensoriales. We are grateful for you to share your time with us and give us your experience and your sensory trajectory. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Do you have something else? Do you want to add?
No, I think no. I hope that we can start some collaboration more strict with between societies in different countries of the world. So this I really hope that we have ideas. And for example, with webinar events, we can think about it. But
yes,
this would be great.
I took notice of that, and we will do it shortly. You will see. And thank you again. And okay, gracias a ustedes por vernos. Nos vemos en la siguiente ocasión de Diálogos Sensoriales. Si les gustó, denle like y compartan. Si no, no digan nada. See you next time, Sara. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.